Back in the Fever, where each week we'll bring you a special coach's Chalk Talk session. And this week we're lucky enough to be joined by Lubbock High head coach Mike Speck, whose Westerners open the season this Thursday against Friendship. Coach, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, George.
Give us a little rundown this year on the Westerners. I know you guys are returning an experienced bunch, probably the most experienced in the district. How are things looking for you guys going into the season?
Well, it's been a great two-a-day session. We had a great summer, great spring, and we're finishing it up, but we're ready to hit somebody else besides ourselves. So it's been good in preparation for, the Tigers.
Now, obviously, you guys are in the middle of this big, tough 10-team, 2-5A district, and you actually come in, I think, as one of the more talented and more experienced teams in this district. How you think things are translating going into the season?
Well, I think we've got to go in and try to make sure we translate those talented, experienced kids into points on the board, at each ball game, take one ball game at a time. And, the major key for us is we've got to stay healthy throughout the season because our depth is our greatest weakness at Lubbock High.
Now, when we talked earlier in the season, you told me about, some of the signs of success that you guys are showing, especially in the 7-on-7, competing, with the likes of the Odessa Permians, the Midlands, the Midland Lees. Talk about, do you feel like you're seeing the signs that that's being able to translate onto 11-man football now? I
think so, because we were real physical last week in our scrimmage against Big Spring, and that's what we went down there to do, was just work on the physical aspect of it. Kids did a great job. They had a hard time running the ball, and number one in this league, we're going to have to stop the run. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we tried to do last week, and we did so. So, what we've tried to do from when we started two-a-days to this point, is moving along well.
One of the things I think that is a real strength for your team is on your defense, especially your secondary, where you've got a lot of your talented kids like Devonic Freeman, Jamal Jefferson, Jabri Gibson. Kind of give us an idea here, now that we go to the chalkboard here, of the kind of things that these guys are going to be able to do to help your guys defensively.
Well, number one, we'll be able to rely on these guys to cover the pass and rely on the 7 to play the run. Obviously, in order to play the run, you hear so much about people wanting to get in 8- and 9-man fronts. Well, we do so in our coverage. The basic coverage we use is a cover 2 shell that looks like this. Flat coverage out of corners, deep halves coverage out of safeties. But to involve these fast kids back here, which the free safety is Jabri Gibson, strong safeties Devonic Freeman, to involve them in the front, we incorporated a different coverage called quarters coverage. So in other words, these guys are going to be almost isolated on receivers out here, and they're very apt to do. This is Jamal Jefferson, probably one of the fastest kids in the region, qualified for regionals in the 200, and use these guys in the front as 8-man football players. So in other words, if we involve them in the front, obviously we got a 9-man front. If he's isolated on him, not necessarily man coverage, but in a zone concept, we still have 8 in the box, and that's what we're trying to do. So many times you'll see these two guys drop into halves coverage on passing downs, but what we want to do to be sure and stop the run is involve these guys in the front as much as we can in a quarters coverage.
Now, you mentioned having to stop the run. Obviously, a lot of teams are running the ball in this league, but, more and more teams are going to the spread. Do you feel like that these are guys that are going to be able to, this defense will give you a good coverage as well when you're facing teams like Coronata, Midland Lee, and people like that? Are they going to throw the ball quite a bit?
It is, and what we've got to do is make sure that we mix up our coverages between the halves and the quarters coverage so that they don't know what we're in, because every coverage, just like every defense, has a weakness. And what we've got to do is, rely on these experienced kids back here, and that's where the 7-on-7 helped us so much this summer. Not just the fact that we have the ability and the skill to do that, but the confidence that came with doing it against, foes like Midland Lee and Permian.
Now, you're facing Friendship this Thursday. Kind of give us a rundown about how this defense is going to kind of match up with some of the things that Friendship does, because Friendship throws the ball quite a bit, but they're also going to be one of those that want to establish the run as well.
Yeah, that's what they do. One of their big plays is what we call a power play or an H play, which what they want to do is block down, okay, kick out with somebody and run it inside. And what they do there is they lull you to sleep in the back end where, time after time the receivers come out and block, and we've just got to be disciplined in our coverage, whether we're in halves or whether we're in the quarters coverage to give us an 8- or 9-man front. Okay, we've got to be honest, because what they're going to do is lull us to sleep. Somebody's going to come off, and they're going to hit somebody down the seam in a curl or a vertical down the field. So we just have to play disciplined football, and that's what it's all about, whether you're in our defense or anybody else's. Everybody has to execute the coverage call. Everybody's got to execute the front and then get physical up front. Deliver a blow, get off the block, and get to the football.
Yeah. Well, I would think, Friendship's having to replace a lot of people. You guys are more experienced, so conventional wisdom says that you guys would kind of have an edge in that aspect.
Well, I'd like to think so, but you need to understand momentum, tradition, and the things that Bobby and Brad have done over the last 10 years, has really helped bring them along. So confidence is a big factor. What we have to go into the ball game believing is that they are the favored team. And I think probably going to the ball game they may be. Just, if you look at the rankings, you look at where we're ranked as far as our district schedule is concerned, we have to go out and prove ourselves. We have some more experienced kids, rightly so. We feel like we can go out and win the ball game. We just have to go out and prove it.
Well, there you have it, our first Chalk Talk session with head coach Mike Speck at Lubbock High. When we come back, we'll give you a rundown on this week's games and give you our picks as to who we think is going to come out on top in Week 0 here on the Fever.